Alright, this is the video. We're going to go through setting up an event, creating a race, and we'll go ahead and probably start some registration. So after you've got Race Manager open, you're going to go to Create New Event. You can go File, New Event, or you can hit that button with the calendar right there. And we're just going to go ahead and call this our local race for June 1st. And the location will be right here at the office. Choose your begin date and your end date. Very important. As you can see right there, I am using a mouse and scrolling with a wheel to the wrong date. We've had multiple tracks set up dates wrong, and then the birth dates are wrong for all the kids. Or not necessarily the birth date, but the age of the rider, because it obviously is either putting you back to the future or one of the other. So again, make sure the date is set. If you're running, if this is going to be in a 2-day event with one race on each day, you can change that to today and tomorrow. If it's just today's event and nothing else, as it should be, you're just setting it up. Same begin date and end date is the same. If you're running a whole weekend race, much like we do at the Nationals, you'll need to put Friday, whatever the date is for Friday, and the date is Sunday for the begin and the end, and then you can put races inside that event. You gotta think of it two ways. You've got to set up an event, and then inside that event is your races. Don't ever create one event and then put week after week you're putting your race into that event. That's a mistake. Don't do that. It kind of corrupts your event at some point, and you'll be creating a new one anyway. But you really just want this to be for the day or for the weekend if you're running 2 events. And once you hit Add New, you'll notice this button for New Race lit up. You can now add a new race, or you can close that event. Those are kind of the only 2 things that are still accessible right now, because as you can see, if you go to registration, you've got to add a race. So once that race, once the event is created, you can then create races inside that event. We're just going to put one race today, and again, it's a local race. Today is the day, and we're going to race at 6 o'clock tonight, and we're going to be Black Mountain BMX. So you have the option to go ahead and type a track number. You've got the option to do either or. So you type those in, choose your track from the drop down if need be, and most races are going to be district races that you're setting up. Obviously, if you're hosting a Gold Cup or a state race, you can choose that through there, but your district races are there. If they're a regular race, regular local single point race, it's a standard race. If you're running a race for life or a scholarship race, it will be in the race type. Olympic days are still standard single point races. It's just a difference in fees. So, and that's actually fees to us that you won't be incurring. So that's all other stuff. As far as this is concerned, you've got your race manager and your scholarship race, your Warnke race. Those are kind of your 2 options. Other than that, you're at a standard race. Once you set that up, your single point race fees are going to be your normal. If you've got different fees set up, you can use the practice fees. You can use double point fees if you're running a double point race. And there are standard double point races that you could have, like an earn double. But we'll get into that one a little bit later. Your other options for setting up a race are your class and opens. You always want to offer class. You may not be offering opens, but again, it doesn't hurt anything in your setup if you've left the opens on. You've got a couple options for the type of race you want to run, total points or transfer, and then obviously you've got 2 moto or 3 moto if you're on the transfer system. If you're running total points, there's no way to run it other than 3 motos. So most of you are going to set up transfer systems, probably 3 moto if you're running regular weekend races. You may be running a 2 moto transfer if you're in a time crunch, but fairly standard for those. Same thing for cruiser. You always want to offer that. Your special classes is where you will have open classes and offer some special classes in the case of you've got pro-ams that night, or you want to offer a different type of open. These are customizable slightly. You can contact Bill Curtin if you would like to offer something that's not in the ordinary setup, but there's quite a few options here as far as setup, and we'll get into that later as a kind of a power user to the program and setting up special classes. But for the most part, those will stay regular. If it's a single, double, or triple point race, you can go ahead and set that up there. And again, if you're setting up a state race, you will see you've got 2 options there. Most of you are holding state races, not the final. So that'll be a standard race. And then again, it's single state points, but it could be double or triple district points. So you can set that up there. Your pro tab, if you're offering any pro classes, which at the local level you will not be, other than a pro-am, which is then available in the drop down there for pro-am. But let's jump back and make this a district standard race and add that race. Now the race is in there, it's been added, and as you can see, the registration tab is open. So just a real quick note, as you're in there on registration, you will see that as you pull up a rider, the offering for that day is now there. That's the race we set up, the June 1st local race, and whatever classes he's going to be racing that day is what you put in there. If at any time you get in there and you realize something was set up wrong before you start registration, go ahead and hit that edit race button, and you can make some modifications to your setup. The only thing is, once you do that, you'll then need to rebuild the offering on the registration tab, and I'll jump back over and show you that in just a second. The run order, you won't really be changing much, but if you happen to change that run order, you can obviously take, if you like to run your pros or whatever it is you're running, and you want to kind of change the order around, you essentially just find that class that you want to move and start moving them up or down, and then that changes where they're placed on the run order of the motos. Back on the registration tab, you'll notice that rebuild offering button right here, which we'll get into registration stuff later, but if you ever make any edits to your race, like adding a pro-am, and then you go over to register the rider, that may not always be there, and that rebuild offering will get the offering there for you. So that's that for the event setup. We'll move on to registration in the next video, but that's kind of overview of setting up a race and setting up an event. Obviously, you can close that event with the close button, and the open button will then open that event. So that is event setup.